Well, hey guys, welcome to the Reach Right podcast, episode number 19. I am your host, Thomas Costello, and with me as always is my co-host,
Ian Hyatt. What's up, Thomas?
Hey, what's up, Ian? Welcome to
Living the
episode
dream.
19. That's it. That's it. Living the 2020 dream.
The
We find
2020
ourselves
dream.
in. That's it. So we have a good topic today. We're going to be talking about 5 ways pastors can get the most out of the Sabbath. I think a really important topic for 2020 especially. It's always been important. It
Yeah.
was important when Moses wrote down the 4th commandment, I think. It was important that we keep the Sabbath holy. I think more important now than ever, I would say. What do you think?
I think, yes, definitely now more than ever. Yeah, a lot of people, not just pastors, but specifically we'll be talking, of course, about pastors, but are run ragged this year.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that it's really important because it is something that in my experience, most pastors know how to teach, but a lot of pastors, myself included at times, I didn't know how to practice. And practicing what we preach is really important. And I think that it's a hard thing to do. I think that there's lots of things that make the Sabbath extra hard for people that lead in churches to keep. There's all kinds of reasons for that. And I think it's just an important conversation because we live in this 24/7 world where being called to be a 24/6 kind of person is really something that's challenging. And I think that there is huge blessing for those of us that are able to get that right and really get in the Sabbath. Tell me about you, Ian. Your family, are you guys big Sabbath keepers there?
You know, it's something that we've gotten a little away from. And as you know, right now, just to be totally transparent, right now, as you know, I'm not a licensed pastor, been licensed pastor, and we're still, of course, active in ministry. And I definitely am active in leadership at my church and heavily involved. But even as a pastor before, and now not being one, it was something that, I don't think I did a good job of, and I think we'll be discussing, that maybe some pastors that think they are taking time off that really aren't. But it's a good refresher for me, and it's something that I think, especially as you mentioned, this is a good topic for 2020. We've got all out of rhythm this year. With everything, with church life and everything, and I think a lot of people are in that boat. So yeah.
But that's a good way to put it. I think the rhythm of life, and I think what Sabbath does is it helps everybody. It's obviously not just for church leaders. Everybody, God calls everybody and invites everybody, and I think everybody would be blessed by practicing the Sabbath.
Yeah.
But I think it establishes a rhythm for our lives that is so important. In this 24/7 world, being a 24/6 kind of person is a different kind of rhythm.
Yep.
But I think it's one that God blesses. I know for me, just to answer the question I asked you, Sabbath was something that I probably thought that I did well up until a few years ago, until I really dug in. We actually wound up teaching a series at our church on this, and I was deeply convicted as I was teaching it. I said, I can't teach this if I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
So it was something that we really had to put in practice, and I must say that for us, really making some changes and carving out a real 24-hour period that each and every week we know is sacred, set apart, and special. I think it was something that was really good for me. It was good for my wife. It was good for my kids. And really something that I think every pastor should dig into, pray about, and I think it'll bless your life if you do it. So, so let's dig in. We have 5 ways I think that pastors can really get the most out of the Sabbath. The first one I'll go ahead and share is that, and this seems so obvious, the first one is don't work. Don't work on the Sabbath. I know that so many pastors that when we talk about Sabbath, we think of it as being the same thing as just having a day off. It really, the 4th commandment is not thou shalt take a day off. The 4th commandment is that you should remember the Sabbath and keep it holy. On those other days you work, on this one you don't. That's what the fourth commandment is all about. And I think so many church leaders, what we wind up doing is we wind up just thinking of the Sabbath as the same thing as having a day off from work. And what it turns into is it's a catch-all day. You work for 6 days, And on the seventh day, you mow your lawn.
Yeah.
You kind of get those house projects done that you've been meaning to get around to doing. You do you make those phone calls that you've been dreading making, having to call up the cable company and finally switch your plan. And everybody knows that in life there is a full day's worth of stuff that has to get done outside of your work. So do you hear that from pastors? Do you find that's the same?
I do. Yeah. And I think that's, having worked with pastors for years, and I know you have as well, but I don't necessarily dig into the topic of the Sabbath with pastors and what we do here at Reach Right and what we consult with pastors on. However, it does come out into conversations. It comes out when I get to know a pastor and I get to kind of hear they'll open up and share kind of what their week looks like or what they're dealing with right now at the church that's stressful. Because we're kind of I'm kind of that outside ear to lend to a pastor that they often kind of don't have sometimes internally at their church or even with their family. So I end up hearing some things that I'm actually very surprised to hear about. And so, I would agree. I think that I find a lot of pastors that maybe, and I'll hear a pastor, hey, I'm not going to talk on Monday or Friday. That's my day off. And rarely will they say that's my Sabbath though. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I find sometimes people don't say that because
it's kind of a weird thing to just always say.
I tried to say that before because there is a distinction between day off and Sabbath, right? I think that's important. But I remember saying that to people before and they say, oh, you're so spiritual because you take a Sabbath, not a day off. But I really think it's something that I've had to make a distinction. And I think that for pastors, a lot of times what they'll wind up doing is they'll have one day where they don't schedule things that are work related, but everybody knows that in ministry stuff's going to come up anyway. People get sick and need their pastor, and people they need to get married on your day off a lot of times, and there's all kinds of things that have to happen. People just need you when you're in ministry, and it's so important that you put in safeguards that really carve out this time that say that I don't do things like this. I don't do anything except for things that are restful on my Sabbath day. I think that's something that's really vital. Yeah. So
you're reminding me of something.
Don't work. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I was going to say I wanted to interject there. So whenever I used to do real estate part time, and I started learning from other realtors in the real estate industry, there was one guy I was very impressed with this, and he was a family man. He was in his 30s and he was a family man. And on his voicemail, he made it a point that these are the hours that he would respond to calls and requests, and on Sunday he don't expect to hear from him. And he set that expectation with his clients, and I was very impressed with that because at this time, I had my kids were a bit younger and we were still growing our family and everything, and I was just like, if I do this, and granted, I never went into it full time. That was not my calling. And thankful we're doing what we're doing here now at Reach Right. But if I were to go full time, I was like, I'm going to do what this guy did, because in a way, he was keeping a Sabbath-like schedule. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's funny you say that, because I think I would assume in the real estate industry, like churches, Sundays are kind of important days, right?
Yeah.
In real estate, Sunday is a big money making day, and in church, it's our Super Bowl day, right? It's our big day every week is Sunday for the most part. So
it's when open houses and all of that. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. So I imagine it costs them. Here's another example. B&H Photo. They're one of the biggest providers of camera equipment and those kinds of things. I bought the camera I'm talking into right now at B&H, and they are a Jewish-owned company in New York. And if you look at their website, Friday at sunset through Saturday at sunset, their website says, like, you can't buy anything. Like, you actually can't get on their website and make a purchase because they're practicing the Sabbath, and they just don't do that. So there are people that are bold enough to go out there and actually say, I'm not going to do business on these. Now, I'm not a legalist.
You made me just think, obviously, Chick-fil-A.
Right?
There's a great example. They shut down. I mean, they could, McDonald's is probably happy that they're closed on Sunday.
Yeah, that's exactly right. But that's a good chunk. That's what, 17 or 16% of their income that they're just giving away because they're not open on Sundays, and even more profit, I would say. So the moral, I think, here is that pastors, I think, for your own sanity. I know that there's so many temptations of things to come up, but be intentional about this for your own mental health, to carve out this day. And I know you take a day off, but actually take one where you don't work. I think it's really vital, especially in 2020. I think we really need to get a hold of that. So,
and I don't think I don't think I fully answered your first question. I mean, when you said that, so it's kind of funny now you're making it come to memory, but I will have pastors telling me that, oh, Friday's my day off, so that's a great time for me to set an appointment with you.
Right.
And so, so I think case in point, it's hard for me to say, well, no, I won't talk to you, Pastor, because you need a Sabbath.
Right.
But at the same time, I'm thinking in the back of my mind, why? Don't.
Yeah.
Go take your wife out or something.
Yeah, let it be known that if it is your day off, the website can wait. The Google grant can wait. We'll talk to you later. So
that's it.
That's exactly it. So why don't you hit number 2 for us, Ian?
Yeah, it's choose the right day. We're kind of talking about, whether or not it's a Friday or Monday. I know, having worked with churches as long as I have, it seems like it's always been either Friday or Monday is the pastor's day off. And that, I guess, is kind of natural when you look at the church calendar and what's happening on Sunday. However, it may not be that day. It could be another day. But I think that you do have to be strategic and plan. What's the Dave Ramsey saying? If you don't plan to win, you plan to fail. And so you gotta plan that right day to where you think, okay, what can I put in place? What's the best day that I can not work, like you just said, not do any work, and kind of institute some of these things?
Yeah, that's good. So for me, in my time when I was pastoring a church, I was always a Monday day off kind of guy. And what I would do, I was bivocational. We were starting Reach Right several years ago and building this business up. And so I was pastoring a church and we were doing this. And what I would do is I would carve out a 24-hour period. So for me, it was Sunday afternoon, so church would end. We were very intentional about not doing Sunday night events at the church. That was never something that we really did. There were Sunday night services. So Sunday night through Monday midday, that was my Sabbath. And we would carve that out. And it was really important that we got the right day, because here's something that is, I want to be really clear. I think that I've talked to some pastors that do this. Sunday can't be your day off unless you're a Seventh-day Adventist church. Sunday cannot be your day off, right? So, don't try to do that, because Lord knows you cannot really rest on the day when you put out so much effort. Preaching is an enormous task, week in and week out. So Sunday is just not going to work for you. I've seen cases for Friday being a good day, but in my experience, Friday was hard because I usually was trying to catch up and get my sermon finished and doing some of those kinds of things, getting PowerPoints done and that kind of stuff there was all important on Fridays. I had someone counsel me once that said, hey, you should consider something more in the middle of the week. I had a pastor friend that told me that Tuesdays worked really well for him, because what he found is that on Mondays, that was already like a total decompression day, and it was hard to rest on Mondays because you're always thinking about, did I say that thing right? Or emails that tend to come in from people who emails from people that say, hey, I didn't really like what you said in this, or that kind of feedback that usually happens on Mondays. There's lots to be done right after Sunday and your visitor follow-up and those kinds of things. So there's a case that can be made. But I think the main point is you need to choose the day that works best, and that it should be a consistent day. So that's why I think Saturdays are hard for a lot of pastors, is because you're probably doing some late prep, and then there's always something happening on Saturdays. You have church events and weddings and all those kinds of things happen on weekends a lot of times there. So I think it's important that you choose a day, and that it's a day you actually can carve out, and that you can be consistent with that day. Almost all the time. And again, we're not legalists about this. If something happens, then it happens. But if you find that most of the time your Sabbath gets interrupted, it probably isn't a good day for you to choose for your Sabbath there. You need to look at it again.
It's a good point. Yeah, good point.
Yeah, that's good. Let me hit number 3. And this is really important. Number 3 is do something different from your day-to-day activities on your Sabbath. Here's what I learned is that if you have the kind of life where you find that your ministry, it keeps you in the office all the time, so your 9 to 5 is you're mostly in the office, maybe you have a couple of lunch meetings or things, but most of it is indoors, sitting at a desk, typing, reading, thinking, your Sabbath probably ought to be something different. It probably ought to be going outside and riding your bike, or getting outside into some sun and trying to find some ways to get exercise and do something that's a little bit different from your day to day. If you find that ministry is something that gets you outside all the time, if for some, you're doing house calls all the time, or you're doing meetings all day and you're doing stuff outside, well, then it might make sense to do something the opposite, where you just sit around and crash and watch movies or play video games or be with your family indoors for a lot of your time there. So it's just something that's different. It takes you out of the normal rhythm of your life there. So that's kind of my thought. What do you think, Ian?
Yeah, and I think that's great, because, I mean, how healthy is it to anyway, even if we weren't talking about doing this on the Sabbath, that's just a healthy human action to take, is to break up the monotony, do something different, find a new hobby, doing something out of the norm of your normal routine. It also is restful, because it's not what you're used to in the flow of your busy work week as a pastor or bivocational pastor or whatever it is. So I love it. I think and the more that you get creative and you start doing new things, when we find, I don't know about you, but whenever I find something kind of new to do that I enjoy, man, it's really exciting to me, and it's something for me to add into my life. And I'm like, why didn't I do this sooner? Why didn't I do this sooner? And so I think that would really be an encouraging and helpful thing for pastors. Yeah.
So I think, especially in this pandemic season where we are all indoors a little bit more, I think that it probably, for most of our listeners, getting outside and doing that, like doing life outside, getting into nature, getting exercise, is probably the right way to spend your Sabbath for most of our listeners. I know for me and my family, it's, and I live in a place where we can do this, but it's beach and surfing. That's what we do. Like, so it's our Sabbath is we will spend hours and hours at the beach, playing in the water, surfing with the kids, soaking up sun, being with people that we love and friends and family. That's something that we really do, but it's not the same for everybody. Obviously, not everybody can be surfing on the Sabbath, but that's what we do here in Hawaii. When in Rome, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And how popular has it become in 2020 to get a bike or start exercising outside? I can't tell you how many people I see outside my home office window riding bikes. I just had someone in the neighborhood tell me that they found the last bike at the sporting goods store.
I know They're all sold out.
No, it's a good thing. It's a good thing, but this has been a good year to try to do some of those new things out in nature for sure.
I think that's right. Yeah. Why don't you hit number 4 for us?
Number 4, and I think most pastors that hear this point, they're going to be like, hallelujah, amen. But it's eat well. And we're not necessarily talking about eating healthy, even though we should all try to eat more healthy. But I'm the type of guy that I do value fitness, and I do try to watch what I eat, but I'm also one of those guys that I'm like, realistically, you got to have a day or two when you eat, you eat something, go get the double meat cheeseburger or whatever, live a little bit, it's like the people that try to follow the strictest diets, they never stay on them, right? Because they don't have that cheat day or something like that. So that's the first thing that comes to mind to me. But eating, it's a blessing, right? How much does the Bible talk about food as being a blessing, and eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow will die, and talking about one of the it's coming to mind in Ecclesiastes, which a lot of times the first thing people think about is that's such a grim, depressing book, because it's talking about how just we know nothing and everything's like grasping at the wind. But the one thing I remember from that book is it talks a lot about there's nothing better for a man to live out their days and eat well. There's a part in a passage of scripture there. So I think it's a good thing, definitely on the Sabbath. So
yeah, I am totally with you. I think cheat day is a good way to put it. I think your Sabbath day, in my experience, it's great when that is the day that you really kind of is the day you let yourself go with that kind of stuff a little bit. If you're a rigorous diet kind of person, then I think that's really the right way to do it. And I think it's easiest to see in my kids. Like, so we have some strong rules on drinking sweet drinks and sodas and that kind of stuff in our house. But Sunday is that day we let it go, right? Like, so that we let the kids have, that's soda day. They kind of know that that's the day they get to have sodas, and they already know, like, I don't have to remind them, on soda day, I know that they are, when it comes time for dinner, that they're going to have that soda already in their hands. They know what day it is. And it's almost like a Pavlov's dogs kind of a thing, where as Sabbath builds up, they think of it and they start to salivate, because it's going to be that fun day where they get to have soda. And it's the day I'm a big barbecue smoking kind of guy. So I'll get the Kamado fired up and start grilling, doing some of those kinds of things, or doing a long smoke, and knowing that's kind of our fun day to kind of have a big feast and those kinds of things.
Making me hungry.
I know, exactly. When we lived in Wisconsin, the fast food king in Wisconsin. Do you know what it is, Ian? Who the fast food king is up there?
I think, because you've talked about him so much. Culver's.
Culver's is the place,
That's
right?
That's
I know
right.
in your neck of the woods, it's Whataburger. That's what it is.
Right.
I know in California, it's In-N-Out. So wherever you are listening to this, insert your fast food or your burger place of choice. But up there, Sundays was Culver's day for us a lot of times. If we didn't have time to make a big meal, we would go, and everybody would get a burger, and it was kind of a fun night, and it was that one kind of cheat day that we had in our thing. So I just thought it was so healthy, and there is, we don't worship food. I know I'm someone that struggles with that, and sometimes my God can become my stomach, as Scripture says. But it's something that I think that God made food for a reason. He made us like it and crave it for a reason. I think it's something to kind of enjoy. I think our Jewish brothers and sisters, they get that. And I think it's something that in the church we could really embrace there. So eating well is important. I'm with you. Yeah. Number 5, I'll wrap up with this one here. It's that we need to make sure that you make time for family. And I think that this is something that I have struggled with as we adopted Sabbath. I said, all right, cool. So my kids would make fun of me, because on Sabbath, when I took off on Sunday afternoons, I had all my football games were all recorded, ready to go. And I would move my chair into what my family lovingly called Sabbath position. And I would get it like right in front of my big dad chair, right in front of the TV, and get my, get the football going on there. And, in part, that was really good, and there's a place for that. But I think it's important that you really enjoy your wife. You enjoy your kids. I've heard people teach on this, and this might seem strange for this conversation, but you should probably have sex on the Sabbath. That's something that's good. It's a good thing to, amen?
Yeah, amen. God made that too.
Absolutely. It's a good thing. And so all the male pastors out there are saying amen to that. But it's
hopefully
I think that it's something that you really need to carve out and make sure that you make time for intimacy with your wife, spending time with your kids, enjoying their presence, reading together, watching a movie together as a family, digging in and really just being with your family. I think that's something that, not to be a legalist about it, but I think just really enjoying those things. It's important on that day that you get to spend time with them. What do you think?
Yeah, and how much do we hear about, these pastors that are, falling and having affairs, and hear about these, of course, with some of the larger mega-sized churches, or the bigger names, pastor names out there. But it happens with, churches that are smaller as well, and not just affairs, just marriages that are bad. Some of the worst, there's plenty of data that some of the worst marital relationships are between the pastor and his wife. And I think a lot of that is because a pastor doesn't take the time to have a Sabbath with his wife and with his kids and his family. Or when you hear those jokes about, it's a PK kid, watch out for them, they're the worst. I mean, and these are really sad things that should not be. Obviously, when we look at things biblically and how we need to be, and how we need to be as believers and Christ followers, a pastor's family should be very an honorable thing, a noble, holy thing. And I think a lot of times, when you have that pastor that's the one-man gang, and they're taking a phone call, from every member that wants their time, and here the wife and the kids are being abandoned. So I think definitely, and bringing them back. So if you're busy with, as all pastors will be, with their members and everything else that they have going on in leadership, having that one day where it's sacred and you don't take that call from that member, or you don't do that extra little thing, it's going to strengthen your family. It's going to make your marriage better and all of that. So, and that's been a frustrating thing to see over the years. And often it does tie back to not having a Sabbath, not taking that time with your family. So I'm glad you brought that. That's a good point.
For me, with my family, what I had to do to really make this a point was I had to turn off my phone. So it's something that, we all get so many notifications on our phone, and everything has this air of urgency about it. And really it's a distraction for me on the Sabbath from the things that mattered most. So to really emphasize, my kids, I know you and I sometimes will send joking texts about the Cowboys and how pathetic they are, that kind of stuff. But
that's a whole nother podcast.
Outside of that, I turn off all my notifications, and we really, I try to dig into just being with my family on that day. It's really important to me. That's why I think, most people will find that I'm pretty hard to get a hold of on Sabbath day for me here. So it's something that's really important. But I want to just end with this too, just to encourage pastors. I know I've been at a place where I looked at my life, I looked at my busyness as a bivocational pastor and said, get real. How am I going to actually do this? And I would think things like, I cannot afford to give away a day in that way. Like I have too much on my plate, too much to do. I just want to encourage you is that you can't afford not to. Like it's something that you really do need to do if you want to have a whole relationship with the Lord and a whole relationship with your family and your kids, and you want to have a whole mental health situation. I think it's so important that you really make the time to do this. So an encouragement to you pastors out there, you can do this. You can take a more than a day off. You can take a real Sabbath. It will cost you a lot to do it. But the benefits of this, I think, will be so huge for you going forward. So I just want to encourage you with that. I hope that's been a blessing to you. Anything to add as we close up, Ian?
Yeah, one more thing to chime in. When I talked about that realtor that took Sundays off, and this was a very successful realtor. And so, he had his, and I bet he was successful because he took that day off, and it made him fresh to deal with his clients. And if he was good at scheduling his calendar every other day of the week, or make the open house, or take people to go showings. And if you look at Chick-fil-A, they're not hurting, obviously. And I think here's the thing I would end with. If the Lord said to honor it and do it, I would think that provision and blessing would come out of it.
That's
just
like true.
The tithe is the sacrifice. Or it's it's in part that financially, but the reward is promised. And I think the same thing I've seen, as I have done a good job at keeping the Sabbath, and I've struggled at times, but whenever I do, I'm always fresher. I've seen the Lord bless it. So that I would say I would want to encourage pastors with too, even though, like you said, it's gonna take some sacrifice. It's gonna be worth it.
Yep, we love you guys, you pastors out there that listen to this. You're the reason why we do it, and we hope this has been an encouragement to you. Thanks again to our audience, and for those of you that do listen to this podcast week in and week out, or watch us on YouTube or Facebook. If this has been a benefit to you, we'd love it if you would rate, review, subscribe, and if we can do anything, you have any comments for us, please do leave those in the notes there below. We'd love to get your feedback on what it means to you, and give us future show ideas of things you're looking to hear about. So that's it for this week. If we don't hear from you first, we'll catch you next week.
See you guys.